Today's video topic, Yamaha MT-09 SP 2024. Good. This time I'll start with the price, 13,099 euros. A figure that places the MT-09 SP 2024 in a prominent position within its segment, especially considering the standard equipment it offers. Yes, naked. The definition is more fitting than ever for the new MT-09 SP, because in its 10-year career, the 09 has completed the transformation from a roadster to a true naked bike. This is especially confirmed by the new riding position, which moves away from the hybrid posture between in-motored and wider fighter typical of previous versions in favor of the latter. The foot pegs are 1 centimeter higher and more than 3 centimeters further back. The handlebar is lower, all to put more weight on the front end to have better feel on the front. Thus, for a sportier ride, front-end feel that I always found somewhat lacking in previous versions, and that I'm curious to check on this bike. In short, the new MT-09 SP changes the riding position and also the attitude, now more in line with the character of the CP3, an engine I would describe as impetuous. No changes compared to the previous edition. The Euro 5 Plus has not affected Yamaha's 890 cubic centimeters 3-cylinder engine, still rated at 119 GP and 93 nanometers of torque. The main novelty lies in the electronics. Apart from the smart key, because it's the SP, it has keyless start, and here all the controls are really present, including the IMU, 4 levels of engine power delivery, 3 levels of traction control, yaw control, wheelie control, and now also engine brake control. There are 5 available engine mappings, rain, street, and sport, plus 2 fully customizable ones, Custom 1 and Custom 2. The SP, unlike the standard MT-09, also offers a track screen with lap times, which opens up the possibility of having 4 additional track mappings, all of which are fully customizable, and the ability to disable the ABS on the rear axle. In short, a truly respectable electronic package, and most importantly, it's offered completely as standard. Obviously, the most interesting part of the SP is the chassis. It should be noted that within the 13,099 euros, the already known aluminum frames and swing arms are paired with high-level suspensions, featuring the fully adjustable Kayaba fork, with DLC-coated stanchions, and an Öhlins shock, with remote preload adjustment. Additionally, since 2021, the MT-09 has been using wheels made with spin-forged technology, which allows for weight saving. And now, let's go test it. Here we are on board the Yamaha MT-09 SP 2024. Let's see what you find when you get on the new naked bike from Iwata. I have to say that in terms of visual impact, everything is well done. Everything you see is really well made. There are also these 2 small grills that Yamaha designed to direct the intake noise to the rider's ears, along with all new, interesting switchgear. The new turn signal control is also curious, as it no longer has the central slider that moves left and right, but instead has 2 buttons that activate and deactivate the turn signal by pressing the same button. What does this mean? If I need to go right, I press here, activate the turn signal, press again to turn it off, do the same for the left, and turn it off. You need to get used to it for a moment, because as always, when we change the controls, it takes a little time to get the hang of it. The cruise control, like I said, is well managed, with the left semi-handlebar, which, has a small 5-way joystick, meaning the 4 directions plus, cursor, enter, along with the home and return buttons. On the right, there's a kill switch and a mode button that allows you to change the mappings only when the throttle is closed. Among the 4 available mappings, actually 5, rain, street, sport, custom 2, and custom 1. As you can see, if I hold down the mode button for a long time, it enters the mapping customization mode. Then with the small joystick, and you can calibrate the mappings. The preset trip modes, are not adjustable, while custom 1 and custom 2 allow you to adjust traction control on 3 levels. Engine power delivery on 4 levels, power 1, 2, 3, and 4, with power 4 being the least aggressive and power 1 the most aggressive. You can also adjust slide control, lift control, kaisen, and engine brake. As you can see, the engine brake setting does not change when switching between mappings. It remains consistent across all 4 mappings. So when you go to Custom 2, you can modify the engine brake, but it will stay the same even if you switch to another mapping. This is to be clear. Pressing again for a long time returns you to the home screen. There are many screens to choose from, many themes. Some nice, some less so. Like this one. Wait a moment. This one, which honestly I like the most. And then there are others that you can choose from. The track mapping, so as you can see, activates the track screen, which in addition to giving you lap times, always shows you all the various options for power, engine braking, traction control, and here you can change all the various settings. Typical of every Yamaha is also the fact that the 3 spaces below are completely customizable with the information you want. I have to say that the instrumentation, in my opinion, is spot on. A very interesting feature is the connectivity with the phone, not only to manage messages or calls, but also to handle navigation. Obviously, I have already connected the phone through the Yamaha My Ride app, but also using the Garmin Street Cross app, you can see that you can navigate step by step. You can navigate with the map or even set up navigation differently by changing the view and navigating step by step with the directions. From this point of view, I'm not someone who uses this type of application a lot, but I have to say that I used it quite a bit this time. It's especially useful because it also shows speed cameras, which is great on roads we know since we already know where they are, but when we're, on unfamiliar roads, it can help us avoid getting a few tickets. As you can see, the main information remains active, such as the fuel level indicator, speed, gear engaged, and mapping selected. However, there's also the navigator, which I must say is very functional. In this regard, well done Yamaha, the display is approved. Here we are, the test is over, or rather not quite over yet, because from here in the Lessini Mountains to get back home, there's still a good distance to cover. But since between last night and today, I've already ridden 400 kilometers, we can already draw some conclusions about the MT-09 SP. For me, it wasn't exactly a revelation because I'm well acquainted with the performance of the MT-09's engine, but there are some noteworthy improvements that absolutely need to be mentioned. I'll start with the ergonomics, which is the first thing. And in my opinion, this is perhaps the biggest step forward made by the MT-09 SP, the repositioning of the foot pegs. Further back and higher, along with the lower handlebars, has completely changed the riding attitude of this motorcycle. I have to say, I really like it, much more biased than before. We are still on a comfortable bike. It's not too hard on the wrists. You can stay in the saddle for many hours. But when you start riding actively, I finally have to say the MT-09 SP follows you. And even when you ride in hanging off mode, as the English say, leaning a bit with your torso, you are never out of place with this new triangulation. I like the triangulation. I am using the foot pegs in the low position. So, the leg angle is more than adequate for me. There are no ground clearance issues, and you can raise them by one more step. However, if you are taller than me, this position might make your knee bend a bit more than you would like, but you can try both positions and see which one you prefer. Both levers are adjustable and the clutch is very smooth. So the riding position, again, gets a thumbs up from me. Anything to improve? Yes, in my opinion, the seat, because it's not a super tiring seat. The padding in the back is also quite substantial, nice and soft. But the seat tends to push you a little bit forward. Yesterday, I spent many hours riding, and in the end, the padding near the tank area becomes thin. Over time, you can feel the frame underneath, which becomes a bit tiring. This is the only part that I would change ergonomically. Moving on to the engine, and there are no new updates. Obviously, the 3-cylinder CP3 is really amazing. It's an engine that I always describe as always engaged, meaning it's always ready to go. The throttle response is always perfect, and it has incredible torque. This has always been the strong point of the bike, and it still is. I like the new calibrations of the mappings because I never appreciated the overly aggressive throttle responses of Yamahas, especially when you used the more aggressive power modes. I have to say that there are 4 of them here, and I tried all 4. I even like Power Mode 1, the one paired with the Sport mapping. There's not too much on-off. In fact, there's almost none at all. The brake management is very good, both in the freer configuration and in the slightly more controlled setup. Therefore, the throttle control is excellent even when you're going slow. It's always there. You don't have an on-off effect. So from this point of view, the work has been effective. I like the street mode. It's perhaps the most linear, the most one-to-one, because the sport mode tends to give you a bit more when you first touch the gas, let's say. Then the 3 and 4 mappings, which can be paired with custom maps or the rain map, for example, are really very saturated. So when you're in traffic, they can work well, yeah? But when you're riding a bit faster, either street or sport mode, so power mode 2 or 1, high-level controls, the anti-wheelie works well. It keeps the bike down, doesn't let it lift too much, but it also allows you to do some small wheelies if you want to have a bit of fun. So, good engine. I like the gearbox both when you use it with the clutch, which is very soft, and when you use it with the quick shifter, which always has the correct cutoff time, whether you're pushing hard or going slow. You never have a moment where you wish for a faster or more relaxed cutoff. So from this point of view, I have to say Yamaha has done a really great job. They have refined the package that was already good with the MT-09, and now with the 2024 version, I think it has reached full maturity. To go back a bit to the ergonomics, which I forgot to mention a couple of details, I have to say the seat is also not that long. When you move back a bit, when you start riding a bit sportily, you quickly end up touching the passenger seat. The control blocks are very good, with a nice aesthetic, but also very functional. The joystick works very well, and all the clicks are clearly felt. The turn signal control is a bit peculiar. I had to get used to it because sometimes when I activated the left turn signal, I would accidentally turn it off by pressing the right turn signal. It's clear that we change bikes every day, but when the bike becomes yours, you learn quite quickly. I'll also mention the cruise control, which works well. It engages smoothly, and even when it re-engages, it's very soft. So from this point of view, it's very, very good. In terms of comfort, I also note that the vibrations are not too bad. The Yamaha MT-09 SP handles vibrations well on the seat and handlebars, but you can feel the engine on the foot pegs, especially if the engine exceeds 6,000 revolutions per minute. After that, the vibrations become quite, noticeable. However, it's also true that you don't often exceed 6,000 revolutions per minute because, this engine has so much pull at lower RPMs that you rarely feel the need to push the gears further. So from that perspective, it's good. But I repeat, the foot pegs are the part that vibrates the most. And beyond 6,000 revolutions per minute, especially on the highway when you're going fast, you can feel it a bit. The heat management, on the other hand, is good. Today we were riding in 36 degrees and the bike does get hot. Yes, like all bikes, but it's something very tolerable. I'm wearing jeans, which is a very delicate situation when it comes to heat, but there are no heat spikes anywhere. Obviously, above 35 degrees on a motorcycle, guys, you suffer everywhere. Speaking of aerodynamic protection, if you're looking for the worst enemy of the MT-09, it's definitely the highway. More than air protection, here we are talking about air exposure, because there is really no protection at all. Torso, helmet, shoulders, everything is very, very exposed. So let's say that if you have to ride on the highway, you need to be prepared to suffer. However, let's say that this is not a priority when purchasing a motorcycle of this type. And also speaking of suspensions, the setup is quite stiff. We'll get back to that, but it's especially the high speeds, the high working speeds of the suspensions. I mean, when you hit some sharp bumps, partly due to the tires, the suspension tends to be a bit stiff at first, sending sharp jolts to your lower back. Along with the seat that isn't very soft, the comfort is that of a true sports bike. Do we want to put it that way? Let's put it that way. Let's move on to the chassis. And here, guys, there's a lot to say because while it's true that the package has remained essentially unchanged, if we look at the technical aspects of the MT-09 and so SP, there's the Olin shock absorber, the Kayaba fork with DLC coating, high-level equipment, Stellima calipers. So it's a bit of the package we already knew. But the change in riding position has changed everything about the bike, the attitude, how it gives you, the feeling on the front end, especially because instead of the S22, the S23 tires have arrived, which have a front that has much more presence. On the front end, when you go to insert the bike into a curve, these tires have a very stiff carcass that gives you a lot of kickback when you hit a lot of small bumps one after the other. And if you use them at street pressure, you feel the bumps quite a bit. I never do this, but in this case, I lowered the tire pressure by a few tenths of a bar to get a bit more comfort and a little more grip on the road. However, I really like the front of the S23 combined with the MT-09 SP. I was saying so that obviously the weight distribution, or therefore the load more, shifted to the front gives you a completely different feedback on the front wheel. So from a bike that was a bit seated, definitely super agile, but when you pushed it, you missed a bit of ground contact from the front. So those who loved a slightly more solid front end felt a bit out of place, a bit out of their element. It has transformed into a true naked bike. We are always nicely seated, very comfortable, as I mentioned before, but when you push the front end now, you can really feel it. And so it has become a much sportier bike, much more naked, rather than a roadster for doing big wheelies. But again, with a slightly light front end. I like this, I liked it a lot. Initially, I found the setup to be a bit unbalanced. Between the front and rear, meaning that the front is very firm, the fork works well and it starts off well, but when you brake or need to enter a curve, it tends to dip, a little too little in my opinion. The rear, on the other hand, was a bit too soft, a bit saggy. Regarding the setup, I adjusted the knob by 4 turns, adding 4 turns of preload to the knob. I raised the rear a bit, and they simultaneously opened the fork compression slightly, rebalancing the bike so that it now functions more uniformly between the front and rear. It has changed quite a bit because by loading the front even more, the bike has gained effectiveness in corner entry. You always get feedback when you release the brakes and enter the turn. It doesn't tend to fall like the previous MT-09 with the S22 tires. The Kaite corner entry is much more uniform, and you really feel the front end in your hand. From this point of view, I justify the purchase of the MT-09 SP over the standard model, because you really have a lot of flexibility to do many things with the suspension. In my opinion, the rear of the bike still feels a bit uncontrolled, both in compression and extension, but it was a minor issue, so I didn't adjust the settings, which, by the way, have a lot of room for adjustment. We are in the middle of the scale for both compression and extension, so I made a chart to roughly understand where we were and where I went after adjusting the settings. However, I must say, by rebalancing the bike this way, I found a great tool for having fun in the curves. I really liked it a lot. The brakes are truly top-notch. The front is beautiful. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry to say this, or rather I'm not, because I'm proud, since Brembo is an Italian brand. When you have Brembo pump and caliper, it's a whole different sport. Fantastic pressure point, perfect lever adjustment, exceptional brake modulation. From this point of view, the front with the Stellima and the radial pump really sets the territory apart, even compared to the competition. The rear is very good. It's all Nissan in this case, so we have a mix of systems here, but it handles well, engages well, and manages the ride perfectly. It's never out of place, with the pressure point in the right spot. So, from the perspective of the brakes, the Yamaha MT-09 SP is really fully approved. It's a great product, a product I really enjoyed. I've taken a lot of curves these days, actively seeking them out because I wanted to understand if the step forward made by this new position had changed the MT-09 SP. The answer is yes. It has become a bit more naked, a bit less of a fun bike. Does it still remain among the most agile bikes in the segment? Definitely, yes. If there will ever be a comparison, we will work on it. We will try to make it happen. I am sure that in terms of agility, both in tight and fast mixed conditions, this bike will receive the highest marks, because from that point of view, it has not lost its distinctive agility, but now with a front end that communicates much more with you. Lastly, the connection. And connectivity to the phone are very easy. And I used the navigator on the dashboard very willingly because it was really helpful to me. You can see the calls, manage everything from the control block. Really very convenient, all free with the map, with the Garmin app for navigation. So from this point of view, I really like it. I pretty much covered everything I noted about the MT-09 SP motorcycle over this day and a half up to now, but I'll also be heading back home, so I'll have more miles to cover. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. First of all, remember to subscribe to the channel because we're close to 100,000 subscribers and we want to get there quickly. I'm also thinking of throwing a party when we reach 100,000, so give us a hand so we can all meet at the 100,000 subscribers party. If you have any questions for me, as you know, I always respond to everyone. See you at the next review and the next video.